That brings us to Dave Nave, who's going to do, as he always does for us, is to not only share the good news that he shared with us today, but he has something to help us go and grow. So Dave, do I need to make you the presenter, or you have the magic touch to pick it up yourself?
I think it should be showing.
There we are.
Okay. So this is a series, and we're going to talk more about policy alignment. And in this case, we're going to talk about the incongruency between the goals and rewards. We're going to talk about the second item on the list here. And before we move further, I need to talk about what is a system. And in our case, a system is going to be defined as a collection of interdependent components working towards a common aim. So how does that look in an organization? In this case, it's a little diagram. They call it a flow diagram. But in this case, we're going to talk about production viewed as a system. And the system must be managed. It will not manage itself. And many times in the Western world and Western management, if the components are left alone, should I explain how this works for people?
That'd be good.
Okay, sorry about that. Stage, I've looked at this for so long, I forget. The stage 0 is ideas are generated, and in production world, it's designed and redesigned, and then you receive test materials. You align up suppliers, multiple suppliers. You do a production run. You assemble it, finish it, inspect it, and distribute it to customers. And then on the bottom, there's a whole bunch of procedures and test procedures and machines and requirements that go along. Now, just about everything you do is at this high level, and you can do this for just about any organization. I've seen it done on if the aim is to conduct a seminar, you can use this to start the discussion on what does it take to do a seminar. But in this case, each of the components must make a contribution to the overall aim, which in this case is happy customers, of course. And if we leave them alone, if we don't manage it, it has a tendency to deteriorate. And it'll become competitive because there's limited resources out there. And they become self-interested, and they will do things only for themselves. So as management's job, the first thing that needs to be done is clarify what is the aim of the organization, and then help people understand what their contribution is to that aim. Okay, so what happens in most companies? Let's say you have an organization like this, and now everybody understands it. So what happens in most companies? Okay, they usually break them down into profit centers, and it looks like this. They set up management systems that says, okay, production, you must have, here's so much money, and you must show a profit for it. The problem with this is the importance of the entire system is cooperation. And if you don't cooperate, it will not work. Most companies, most people believe that if all the independent organizations or independent components are successful, then the entire system would be successful. And that doesn't really work. Because each one becomes, like I said, they're looking for the survival of their own. You've changed the job of managing any one of these components to doing the best for you, not for the entire system. So let me show you an example from the automotive industry. This is an old example, but it still works. You have the electrical components on an engine, and there are electrical components on a transmission. As it is, the engine costs $500, the transmission, the electronic components on electrical, not electronics, electrical components on the transmission are $400, so both of them are $900. So somebody gets a bright idea, and they says, if we add something to the engine, some components, some additional whatever, now the cost is $650 to the engine, but we totally eliminate the transmission, any electronics on the electrical on the transmission. So for the company, it's a savings of $250. So what happens? You show this to managers, and the manager of the engine department says, there's no way in hell I'm going to do this. He says, my job is to reduce the cost of making engines, not to help the transmission department. So the proposal ends up not happening, and overall, the entire company, the entire aim of the organization loses. So the question that I have at this point is, how are you in your company contributing to this mismanagement of people? And it's an open-ended rhetorical question, but something you need to consider as you go through and organize a larger organization. And just be aware of it. That's the end of my presentation.
Well, Dave, that's really very thought-provoking because we do tend to create silos. We do tend to create friction between people, even if it's just two people, it can happen because people have different perspectives. So in terms of bringing these together in the situation you showed us, what would you have done?
What would I have done?
Uh-huh. How would you have handled that? The engineer guy, the engine guy.
Yeah, for that you usually have to go up one level in the hierarchy of the organization that's in charge of the entire powertrain and say, we need to look at this, and yes, your people are going to react this way. How can we make this beneficial for everybody? I actually had that problem in the aerospace industry, and what we had to do is change how the money is distributed between the different departments. So
that's a great idea, and I think it would apply, wouldn't it, Dave, if you didn't have a department with lots of parts, but you had subcontractors, or some people are like Yulia, who's not able to be with us today. I talked to her yesterday, and she and I are working on a project together. And one of the things that she was talking about was talking to her developers. They're not employees, but somehow those employees and that company have to feel that making it more efficient might, cost them some money in a way, but it might actually have benefits in other ways. Is that right?
Yes, and well, in the suppliers, one of the main issues with suppliers is time. So you can always say, well, if you work together, this is what's going to happen. If you work together in a cooperative manner, you can get done faster and you can move on to the next job. So, yes.
And that's a great way to handle it. Okay. Well, thank you, Dave, so much. And as always, wonderful job. And thank you so much for kind of giving us a really clear example of how this works and how we can apply it, whether we have a bigger company or it's just us. Thank you so much.